Okay, Rabbi Say. Good morning. Good to see everyone. Thank you for joining. I want to share with you a very powerful question. It's a general question in Masechta Nedarim, and it comes up specifically on Daf Zayin, and that is the Gemara has a shaila whether yesh yad l'tzedaka or not. What's the case of yesh yad l'tzedaka? Where you say this coin should be for tzedaka, and then you point to another coin and you say, and this, and this. So do you mean, and this should be for tzedaka, or do you mean, and this coin will be for my personal expenses? What do you mean, and this, right? That's the question. What does it mean, and this? So all the Achronim have the following question. The Achronim ask, The Achronim ask that why does it matter whether they're Yados for Tzedaka or not? Even if they're no Yados for Tzedaka, the halach is Gamar Belibai, you're Chayev. This is, by the way, very similar to the question that the Rosh had on Daf Beis. If I could bring your attention, if you could open up to Daf Beis, where the Rosh asked on Nedarim, the Rosh said, what difference does it make whether they're Yados Nedarim or not? V'afagav de Gamar Belibai Lidar. The Rosh is bothered. As long as you made up in your mind to make a neder, aren't you chayev? No. So the Rosh said, if not that we consider it like you said it, lo have a neder. It's not a neder like we say in Shavuos. Amar Shmuel, Gamar Belibai Tzarach Lahoitzi B'Svasav. Right? Do you remember that Rosh on Daf Beis? The Rosh asked, what difference does it make whether they're Yados Nedarim or not? But why don't we say Gamar? You were Gamar Belibai. And the answer the Rosh gave is, well, it's not enough to be Gamar Belibai for a neder. You need to be Moitzi B'Svasav. But you could ask the same question by tzedakah and you don't have the same answer. What difference does it make whether they're yados for tzedakah? Think about it. Yados means, is it a valid expression to say a partial statement, a handle for nedarim? Is that effective or not? And so you could ask the same question. What difference does it make whether it's a valid statement or not? Either way, you decided to give tzedakah. Isn't a person bound to fulfill that which he commits in his heart regarding tzedakah? Aren't you chayiv to be honest to the commitment of your heart? This is the kasha the Shita Mekubetzes. But I'm just pointing out the same kasha the Rosh asked on that Beis, and there the Rosh answered, well, it's not enough for Nedarim to be Gamar Belibai. Tzarach Lahoitzi B'Svasav. That's not the case by tzedakah. By tzedakah, you don't have to be Hoitzi B'Svasav. So the Shita Mekubetzes says, Ein yad l'tzedakah, im timtzamar yesh yad l'peya, mishum de bal karcha, avot tzedakah de midaita elai. So the Shita Mekubetzes says, v'kashali gabe tzedakah, im bedaita hoya l'tzedakah. If he had in mind to give tzedakah, lama loy neschayavnu mishum nediv leiv. Why are you not chayiv to give the tzedakah? We darshan from the pasuk nediv leiv, the amar b'shuas, gamar belibai. If you decide in your heart, afal pi shaloi hoitzi b'svasav, even though you didn't emit it with your lips, that is sufficient. So the kasha, the Shita Mekubetzes is asking is, of what relevance is it if we say, whether you're Gamar Belibai, whether you're Hoitzi B'Svasav, but Gamar Belibai is Chayev. Where do we learn that out by Tzedakah, Gamar Belibai is Chayev? The answer is from Nediv Leiv. We darshan from the pasuk Nediv Leiv. We say in Shavuos, Gamar Belibai Afash Hoitzi B'Svasav. So the Shita Mekubetzes attempts, V'Shema Gamar Belibai Perushai Shenasiyashev Belibai. You know what Gamar Belibai means? You make a firm commitment. I'm going to give $1,000 to my shul. You think that thought firmly. V'lo yischared, and you won't regret it. In other words, when you have that firm mental commitment, aval kan le nesyashiv alav libay kol kach. But over here, there was something lacking in your commitment of the heart. In other words, the question is, what difference does it make whether it's an oral declaration, but you're bound by what you commit in your mind? So the Shiurim Glatstein is saying, of course you're bound by what you commit in your mind. That's if you have a full-fledged, solid commitment. But if it's not a full-fledged, solid commitment, you're not bound by some kind of whimsical, fuzzy commitment. Which is interesting, because presumably when you say this coin should be for tzedakah and this, and the question is that an articulation of tzedakah? You would think, but certainly he wants to give tzedakah. But it's the Shiurim Glatstein is saying, well, we know he wants, but maybe it's not such, there are different levels of wanting. Everybody wants to learn Kal HaTorah Kula, but if you're not really doing anything about it, then I don't know how much you won't really want it. So if a fuzzy statement is indicative of a fuzzy commitment. That's answer number one. Yes, you're bound by your commitment, but it has to be a real full-hearted commitment.
That's for every piece of tzedakah, for everything you think, it has to be full, otherwise you're not.
Well, that's what we're discussing. In other words, let's say, somebody's having a campaign and you think, yeah, I really should help him out. Maybe I'll send him $36. So are you bound by that? It sounds like, no, that's not a real thought. Just because you saw a guy has a campaign and you say, I really should. Okay, you really should, but doesn't mean I'm committing to.
Really should is different than I'm going to.
But let's say you say, you know what? This guy's having a campaign. I am going to give... Or no, let's like this. The guy's having a campaign. Yeah, I'm going to give $100. But did you formulate those words in your head, or you thought, I should be a sport and give, But if you sit down and you think this guy's having a campaign, I am going to give $10 million, and even though I don't even have the money, but I really want to help. And you firmly commit that, then you're definitely bound by that. Yeah, by tzedakah we learn out from a pasuk. You're bound by your mental commitment, but it has to be a real commitment, not just I really should or I would like to, but I will. So the question is, so then what difference does it make if they're yados? The answer is because the mental commitment here is not firm. That's one way to learn the Sugya. There's another way to learn the Sugya, and that is the Karanoira in the beginning of the Masechta says, "V'kashali mikan al divrei harash b'tainis shekasav b'shem Rabbeinu Tam, the Kabbalah's tainis believe have a Kabbalah k'may neder tzedakah v'hiskim hula dvarav." The Rosh says that to accept a fast in your heart is binding, like a neder and like by tzedakah. The question is, but the Rosh says in the beginning of the Masechta that a neder, you're not bound by what's in your heart. You need to say it with your mouth. The fact that we need to prove that Yados work. Now in Yoredeya, Siman Reish Nun Ches, there's a machloikes achroinim, whether for tzedakah you're bound by your thought. The Rosh holds you're not. And l'chayra, you could prove from the fact that the Gemara has a shaila, yesh yad l'tzedakah, that Gamar beliba is not effective. That's our question. In other words, the Shita Mekubet says paskins that you are bound by your thoughts, so he asks, what's the shaila by Yados? The Rosh also says there are different opinions in the Achroinim. Are you bound by your thought? Can't you prove from the fact that the Gemara has a shaila, yesh yados, yesh yad tzedakah, that you're not bound by your thought? And the Karanara says no. He says the al karchach loy mahani gomer belibay elahecha dolei neskavin lahitzi b'svasav. You know when really you're bound by your thoughts, provided that you are not mechavein to say it. But if you're mechavein to say it, that means you do not want to be bound by your thoughts. And if you don't have a good verbiage, you're not bound by your words either. You hear this? Of course you're bound by your thoughts. That's when you commit in your mind. But when you decide, I'm going to say it, that means you didn't want to be bound by your thoughts. You wanted to say it. But if your words are underwhelming, then they're not valid words and you're not bound by them either. We used this for something last week. So really, the Karen Oira says the fact that the Gemara has a shaila, whether yesh yad l'tzedaka or ein yad l'tzedaka, that doesn't mean you're not bound by your thoughts. You are bound by your thoughts as long as you want to utilize the track of thoughts. But when you decide to say words, that means you're mechaveh not to be bound by your thoughts. So those words better work. There are another two interesting mahalchim in the Sugya. One is Shal Sechuvas Oineg Yomtiv, Siman Kuf Yad Zayin, and the Avnei Nezer, Shal Sechuvas Yardei Siman Shin Vav, says the same thing. He says, there's no question, if you decide to give tzedakah in your mind, you're bound by your words. Okay? Listen carefully. If you decide, I am giving $100 to Hatzalah, you have to give $100 to Hatzalah. But no kedusha is chal on the $100 bill that's standing in front of you. If let's say there's a $100 bill in front of you, and you say, you think to yourself, I am going to give $100 to tzedakah. That's great. You're mechuyev to give $100 to tzedakah. But that $100 is not affected by your commitment. That $100 you could use to buy jelly beans. You'll have to give $100 soon to tzedakah. But nothing is chal on that money. Gamar beliba, you have a moral obligation to honor that, but it's not nitfas in the chepza. The question of Yados is it have a din of a neder that if I say this dollar should be tzedakah and this, if that's an effective yad, I must give that dollar to tzedakah. Says Oineg Yomtiv v'vazeh yesh liyashev ma dekasha lituva. Lefidas kama mirishonim that tzedakah mechayev b'machshava, like karbanos, like it says in the Divlev. Like we say in Shulchan Aruch and Yerodea, what's the shaila yesh yad l'tzedakah elav? The pashtus of the sugya is mashma. If the lashon is effective for tzedakah, but it doesn't imply that we don't know what the kavana of the menader is. It sounds like even if we know he wants to give tzedakah, does it work or not? But the question is, according to all the Rishonim that hold machshava is enough, then of course Yados should work. And he doesn't buy what the Shita Mikubetza says, well, it's a fuzzy machshava. He won't be bound by a fuzzy machshava. He says, no, we know what he wants. He says, Aval lefi ma shekosavti asi shaper. To be machshava mechayiv lekayim, your machshava you're obligated to abide by. The hainu im gamar b'daita litein tzedakah. If you decide in your mind to give tzedakah, mechuyev litein kamay ba'omer etein. You have to give as if you would say, I would give. The obligation to give tzedakah when you decide to give tzedakah is just like if I say I will give, if I think I will give, I have to give. But the sela, the coin, is not nitvas. Avalakati ein hasela gufa nitvas v'tzedakah. But the coin is not. The coin is not nitfas. Shehei zeh hasela.
Even if there's a sela in front of the person and he has the machshava that I want to give this coin to tzedakah?
Yes. Ein hasela gufa nitbas b'tzedakah shehei zeh hasela be'ein k'moishu mamoina da'aniyim. We don't say this sela belongs to the aniyim. Le'inyin sheyacha lahatbis b'y sela acher. And if I then wanted to make another neder, and I said coin B should be like coin A, no, nothing is chal. Because there's no kedusha in coin A. It's a personal commitment, but there's no kedusha in the sela. That's the shaila yes yados or not. When I say sela A should be for tzedakah and sela B, of course I now have to give that equivalency to tzedakah. The question is, does anything happen to the coin?
That's
What? That's the difference between neder and nedava?
Yeah.
Yeah, that what? Neder is Hare Zu and Nadav is Hare Alai. So it becomes like a Nadava in a certain sense. In terms of my responsibility, it becomes like a Nadava.
If something were to happen to that coin, it wouldn't matter.
Well, I wonder if, let's say I say Sela A should be for Tzedaka and also Sela B, where the Gemara says that's Tzedaka itself. And then something happens to the coin. I don't know, am I responsible now to give another coin? Meaning, in Neder, maybe there are two things. It's also, maybe Neder is also a personal commitment. So that if something happens to that coin, I would still have to honor my personal commitment, probably. So that's a third mahalach. A fourth mahalach is from the Dvar Avram, the Kavna Rav. I didn't put it on the sheet. Dvar Avram says a beautiful lamdas. He says, of course, if you commit to give tzedakah, you're mechuyev to give. And if there's a sela in front of you and you say in your mind, sela zul tzedakah, you got to give that sela. However, the Gemara Shaila of Yados is, there is a nafkamina between tzedakah that I say I'm going to do and tzedakah that I think I'm going to do. How? Are you over Baal Ta'acher? You're not over Baal Ta'acher if you make a commitment in your mind. You would be over Baal Ta'acher if you make a commitment with your words. Another nafkamina is whether you could retract. I'm not sure what that means. If you could retract, how could you retract? After all, aren't you bound by it? But the way that Dvar Avram learns the Sugya is that there's no question you have to give the tzedakah. The question is, does it have the additional element of tzedakah that Dibor brings to the table? So we basically shared 4 approaches in the Sugya of Yesh Yad L'Tzedakah. The question is, that what difference does it make Yesh Yad L'Tzedakah, but you're committed to do it. And when it comes to Tzedakah, we darshan from Kol Nediv Leiv that you have to abide by your commitment. Again, we did see that there are 2 opinions in the Ramah. It is a suffix, okay? So it's not it's not unanimous that everyone says, but there are Rishonim that say you have to abide by it. They say we learn it out from a drasha. So what's the shaila if Yados? It says the Shita Mekubat says you're bound by your commitment, but there's a very fuzzy commitment that is seen over here when you just say and this. It's not a ironclad commitment. We saw the Karanoira says, of course you're bound by your commitment if you choose to bind yourself without words. Once you choose to use words and use the track of words, then that means your kavanah is not to be bound by a commitment, and therefore the words must be good. The Oneg Yom Tif learns that certainly you're bound to give tzedakah, but there's nothing that is going to be nitfas on the coin itself, as if it's mamon aniyim. So of course you're bound, but nothing happens to the coin. And the Dvar Avram says maybe something does happen to the coin, but there's still elements of tzedakah that are added when you are committed with words. For example, the Yisra Baal Ta'acher. Okay, so that's 4 different approaches in the Sugya. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bracha v'atzlacha. Kol tov. Kol tov. Thanks for coming.
What about Tzad saying that the whole purpose of the Shiloh Yesh Yad Tzedakah is for Hefker? Because it was only out in Tim Saloimar Yesh Yad Tzedakah, then we had the question for Hefker.
So that really Lagabe Tzedakah, it would not be a nafkamina, but Lagabe Hefker.
Meaning with the full Shiloh and Hefkers, if there's Yesh Yad Tzedakah.
So for Tzedakah itself, it wouldn't matter, but it would have an effect Lagabe Hefker.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I hear. If you look at the end of the Shita Mekubetzes, the piece we read, I have it up here. He says, it could be Rav Papa had all the questions at the same time, and the Shas put it out separately. I hear that would be a chidush to say that the Gemara's shaila is really academic only for a different shaila, but I hear the way you're learning, that would be an approach to answer the question. I hear your point. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Shkoyach. Have a good day, everyone. Kol tov. Have a good day. Oh, Rav Lewis.